newest data is here on this inbound major storm system, and this video has the latest breakdown. From wind to rain to severe weather, even snowfall, all of the latest information is right here, so stick around. With that being said, I want to go ahead and jump into the latest timing for this storm system using the European model's future radar, and we're going to start as we go with this system out of our Sunday evening and into our Monday, March 3rd of 2025, where not much is going to be going on out into the plains, although we will begin to see moisture lifting north, with low pressure moving into the front range of eastern Colorado, though the flow on its backside moving in from the northwest to the southeast will lead to moisture moving through the west, out of places like California and Oregon, and then here through places like Idaho, Montana, all the way down to the Four Corners. Expect light to moderate to briefly even heavy higher elevation and even moderate to lower elevation snowfall, as this will be a colder system there. Late Monday night heading into Tuesday is when this system is expected to start moving out into the plains, and as it does so, this is when this is likely going to become more dynamic, with low pressure sitting right over the western parts of Kansas by 5, 6, 7 o'clock Tuesday morning. Around that time, maybe even a little bit earlier, is when we're going to see thunderstorms starting to erupt from Kansas and Oklahoma back down to northern and central parts of Texas, possibly bringing all severe weather hazards, tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail. Eventually, this line and possibly multiple other clusters and supercells will move over closer to the Mississippi Valley through the day Tuesday, while we'll also be watching snow wrapping around the backside of this low. Look at how it develops into a very comma-shaped low pressure system. That indicates that higher strength by the time we get towards the back half of the day Tuesday, as low pressure pivots right on up here towards the borders of places like Nebraska and Kansas, as well as Iowa and Missouri. We'll be watching that severe weather threat right along that cold front, making its way here out of Oklahoma and Texas, and then into points eastbound. Missouri, southern Illinois, western Kentucky, and then back down into Arkansas, western Tennessee, Louisiana, and Mississippi looks to be your main tornado threat and severe weather threat region for our Tuesday. We'll continue to see just generally high winds and rain up into the Midwest, and then the beginning of these possible blizzard conditions ejecting out into the north central plains with any of this tailing snow that could be into places like Nebraska and South Dakota. As we get out of Tuesday evening and into the early part of our Wednesday morning, this storm becomes even stronger, especially in terms of the snowfall aspects, with low pressure pivoting on over here into the Midwest. We'll probably be watching its leading edge for that continued rain, wind, and maybe even some continued severe storms, although the threat will wane briefly overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday morning as you get on down here from the Ohio Valley and back down into the mid-south and southeast states. Look at this snow, though. Parts of northeast Kansas stretching on up into far eastern Nebraska, including Omaha and Lincoln, into at least the western half of Iowa, parts of southern Minnesota, and then into northern Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan. Very gusty winds upwards of 40 miles per hour paired with the snow could mean blizzard conditions for several hours into early Wednesday morning and possibly even into the commute time frame of our Wednesday morning. As Wednesday goes on, impacts will get closer to the east coast, with thunderstorms possible even into the Ohio Valley, but then especially with this round as it gets closer to the mid-Atlantic and northeast shores of the U.S., bringing that chance for more elevated winds, bringing that chance for even a few tornadoes here or there, and again, heavy rain is going to impact everyone, and anybody who has a Wednesday evening commute up and down the east coast will be heavily impacted by these downpours. Late Wednesday night heading into Thursday, while it will still be windy over a lot of the eastern U.S., we will see impacts begin to wane, our snow winding down into just some snow showers into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, rain only continuing around Cape Cod there and the far eastern New England regions. And then as we get deeper into today, Thursday, we will be done with this system. As I mentioned, any rain or snow that we see with this system that I'll break down in more detail again here in just a couple of minutes, it's going to be blown around by some of the wind that we're going to see, and some of our higher wind gusts instigated by this low pressure system will start as early as into our late Monday evening, where parts of Utah, especially the southern parts of that state, on down here into places like Arizona, New Mexico, and into our southern plain states, we'll be looking at least 30 mile per hour wind gusts in the greens, many spots into places like New Mexico, western Texas, western Oklahoma, looking at wind gusts upwards of 50 miles per hour from the west, and any spots that don't see precipitation, this could lead to increased fire danger, so be on the lookout for that in those zones, and some of that fire danger will even continue with these gusts into the day on Tuesday. Look at the winds that are anticipated through our Tuesday afternoon, though, with low pressure pivoting right on up here into parts of the central and north central parts of the plains and into the Midwest. We'll be watching the strong southerly winds around and ahead of our line of thunderstorms in the deep south, bringing up at least 40 mile per hour wind gusts, in some cases possibly closer to 50 mile per hour wind gusts around that lower Mississippi Valley region. Around the backside of this low, coming in from the north and then eventually moving in from the northwest as you get down there into places like Oklahoma and Texas. These oranges indicating widespread 50 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts expected there. A very breezy time, and these winds alone could bring down power lines, knock down some tree limbs as they move through. What about as we get out of our Tuesday and into our Wednesday? More gusty wind on the front side of the storm with at least 30 to 45 mile per hour gusts for a lot of the Ohio Valley region in the east. On the backside of the storm, into the plains, we'll be watching generally 30 to 50 mile per hour gusts out of the greens and into the yellows and oranges as well. And of course, you see that this overlaps with some of those zones anticipating snowfall. Even into Wednesday afternoon after snowfall ends, gusty winds could lead to blizzard conditions continuing up here. This really looks like a breezy system, and it won't even end there into our Thursday over some parts of the east and especially to the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts possible. Friday will even still be windy over the New England zones before this system finally wraps up off the east coast. Alright, now that I've done the general overview for this storm system, I do want to focus a little bit more on some of the specific details, and that starts here with our severe weather. Then we'll talk a little bit more about the winter weather and blizzard conditions here in a moment. The beginning of our severe weather will come out of our Monday, March 3rd, and this especially includes the overnight hours of March 3rd into our March 4th, where an overnight round of storms will drive the risk for damaging winds, some hail, and possibly a few tornadoes over parts of the southern and central plains. This will again be late Monday night heading into Tuesday. The highest risk currently looks to center itself near central parts of Oklahoma. You can see there in the dark greens, though, from central Texas all the way up to far southwest Iowa. That's where I'd especially be on alert for some isolated severe weather, more scattered rounds of severe weather, including that highest chance for tornadoes. They're out of far southern Kansas through central Oklahoma, including the OKC region, even back down to places like Wichita Falls and Dallas in Texas. Watching the severe weather threat again developing late Monday night into Tuesday morning. Remember that time frame. From there, the severe weather is anticipated to pick up through the day March 4th, and then as we get to late March 4th into the early part of our March 5th, with lines of storms and occasionally more isolated supercell storms that could be more discrete expected through Tuesday over parts of the Mississippi Valley, while damaging winds and spots of hail look most likely in a broader sense, especially the yellow and orange shaded areas you see on your screen, the level 3 and 4 zones on my custom ONW severe scale. They will have the highest tornado potential. You can see that we'll be exiting the zones in the Central Plains out of Tuesday morning and then moving into parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and into Alabama. We will also continue to watch severe weather closer to the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic as we get into our Wednesday, although the specific details on that and possibly even some Ohio Valley severe weather we could see Wednesday are a little bit more uncertain, and that will be something I cover in a likely Monday afternoon update video. With those severe weather threat breakdowns more in mind, let's go ahead and give you a look at some of the more specific city-by-city timing anticipated here by this NAM model. Is it going to go perfectly like this? No, but this gives you a general idea to expect that as we go overnight, Monday night, heading into the early to mid part of our Tuesday morning, that's when we're going to begin to see our severe weather event associated with this storm system getting going from central parts of Kansas, parts of central Oklahoma and north central Texas, and then eventually expanding into points east, those exact areas I had highlighted in the dark greens and the yellows. This guidance showing those heaviest rounds of storms moving through there, and some of this will again be into the pre-dawn hours as well as the commute hours of our Tuesday. As we go from Tuesday morning and push towards the middle of the day, that's when this activity is likely to get closer to the Mississippi River, into parts of Missouri, back down to Arkansas, exiting Texas and into Louisiana and Mississippi, as well as western Tennessee and Kentucky. That's where severe weather threats will elevate as we go through the afternoon and into the early to mid-evening hours. Wherever we see this line of storms, and however it sets up here into a place like Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, where I have that level 4 of 7 on my severe weather scale, that could be where we even see some isolated storms out ahead of the line that produce stronger tornadoes. That could even be a possibility embedded in the line, but it's of course with those discrete supercells where those threats tend to elevate even more. As we go out of our Tuesday evening and then into the nighttime, damaging winds and heavy rainfall possibly continuing here into parts of Kentucky, into parts of Tennessee, and the best threat for all of those hazards as well as tornadoes would probably be back down here into places like Alabama, even as we get into the middle of the night, Tuesday night into Wednesday. Some of that could progress over into Georgia and the Carolinas. Timing becomes a little more uncertain. The exact threats become more uncertain into Wednesday. Probably going to watch whatever's going on here closer to the East Coast for isolated severe weather, possibly some isolated severe weather with any storms wrapping around the backside of the low here into some parts of the Ohio Valley into the late day. But overall, the severe weather threat will wane for everyone by the time we get towards the evening hours of our Wednesday, and then we'll be done with severe weather into our Thursday. For those of you expecting a winter weather out of this system, now I've got a little bit of a closer look at the timing for you, including some of the cities and the zoomed in regions on screen. It all starts, of course, as we get into the morning hours of our Tuesday, where we'll possibly have some snow ejecting on out here into some parts of the Central Plains, North Platte, Nebraska, up to Pierre, South Dakota, some of the areas that could possibly be impacted by some snowfall that could pick up through some parts of the day here into our Tuesday. Eventually, it's once we get later in the day Tuesday, though, when that blizzard is really likely going to begin in some parts of Nebraska, especially the eastern half of the state and Grand Island, Lincoln, over to Omaha. Seeing any rain that we see earlier in the day, transitioning to snow by the time we get to Tuesday evening, possibly already some snow ongoing on up there into Minnesota. Eventually, all of this is going to kind of converge, and there you go. There's that heavier band we'll likely see. This particular model, your NAM model, indicating a lot of the same areas the Euro model did. Upper Peninsula Michigan, back down through western Wisconsin, a lot of southern Minnesota, western Iowa, exiting Nebraska and northeast Kansas, and even into parts of northern Missouri, looking at that heaviest band of snow that will also have that gusty wind possibly associated with it into our early Wednesday morning. Even after the snow moves through, keep in mind, gusty winds could keep any accumulations on the ground blowing around, and by this point in time, as we see the sun coming up on Wednesday morning, we could even see snow in a place like St. Louis, Missouri. From here, I think the overall rates of snow decrease, so even if we see snow in Chicago, down into Indianapolis, over to Columbus, Ohio, in the end of Wednesday, it won't be, quite as intense of a snowfall rate. It will still be blown around by the gusty winds, though, and that will make for some messy commute times here into our late Wednesday with anything going on in the Ohio Valley. And then we'll be done again with a lot of this activity overnight, as snow will wane in the Ohio Valley and into the central Appalachians by the midpoint of our Thursday morning, except for some of those higher elevations. What does all of this mean in terms of possible total snowfall accumulations? Here's some blended guidance that's going to help you get a general idea of how much you can expect, although this is not a final forecast just yet. First of all, out of the first part of this storm system, by the time we get through the end of the day, Monday into the early part of our Tuesday, watching some snow moving through the west that could add up in the Sierras of California, some parts of north central Nevada and those higher elevations, upwards of 3 to 6 inches, getting closer to 6 to 9 in some isolated spots there. More like 3 to 6 inches in a lot of the highest elevations here as you push through the Rockies and Mountain West as we get through the late part of the day Monday with any gusty winds that we also see. And then we see our snow moving on out through the plains into the Midwest, where there's your stripe of snow. It looks like in some parts of western Nebraska, and then possibly picking up again into the eastern parts of the state, at least 3 inches of snow looking likely, some spots closer to 6 inches. We'll also see heavy snow here, and however much we see out of Kansas into Missouri, while it's in question, it looks like it could add up to upwards of at least a couple inches, possibly locally higher amounts closer to 3 to 6 inches of snow being possible. And then there's your main swath. Iowa, up here into southeast Minnesota and into northern Wisconsin, the upper peninsula, Michigan, widespread 4 to 8 inches of snow in those deeper blues. Many spots into the purples getting closer to 8-ish to 10-ish inches of snow. That's going to be where we see those heaviest totals. We'll see a little snow in the interior northeast and a little bit in the Ohio Valley as we get out of Wednesday into Thursday, but again, a lot of that's going to be fairly negligible in terms of overall accumulation. With that being said, that is all I have to say for today's video. If you want more consistent, accurate, and educational forecasts in the future with custom graphics that you won't find anywhere else on YouTube, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below as I get closer to 10,000 followers. If you have any comments and questions, leave those down below, and I'll see you right here next time at One Nation Weather.